Welcome to day 8 of the Evil Sites Challenge, and I didn't have a lot of time to play during the first week, so I did a few of the event sites in HighSec and some missions and easy combat anomalies in HighSec, but I had some more time, so I decided to do something I hadn't done before, which is the point of the challenge after all, and go out to drone lands and run the combat exploration sites. So this was my first time running any of these sites that you see over the next few days. I'm again recording this commentary after the fact. This is not my first Radiance though. I ran a Radiance earlier in the day trying to get the site done, and a bunch of locals logged in and started moving about, so I decided to bail out from that site. So this was my second attempt, my first completed Radiance. That is why I have some idea what I'm doing in the site here. Also, in between running the first and the second, I looked up on EVUni to see what the actual... to compare my experience of running the site with other people's knowledge of the site to see what I might be missing. So the most important thing in the first room here, you don't actually have to kill the enemies in this room, but I do want to kill these small drones. Because I am in hostile space. This character is in a wormhole corporation, so I have no friends out here in nullsec. I'm the only person in the system right now, so no other players are immediately coming to get me, but I do want to be able to get out of here quickly if somebody shows up. It's one of the interesting things about EVE is how the PvP layer is ever present in pretty much whatever you're doing in the game. You don't have to worry about what other people are doing as well. Anyway, I've killed the small drones now, and really I could just stop firing at this point, but I'm basically firing anytime I'm able to, in the hope that I can kill a few more drones and get a little bit more money from the site. I think now that I've run a few of these, in retrospect, it's really not worth the time. Actually, the main benefit of running these sites is just the salvage and the possibility of the escalations. The salvage from the battleships in the final room, and if you can get the escalation does give a decent amount of loot as well. Anyway, the past me that was running this site without that knowledge is killing a bunch of drones and other things here just while I'm burning to the gate, which is fair enough. The ammo is not expensive. But now that I'm at the gate, I can begin to line up and get ready to go. As you can see, the fit here can basically tank this site forever, so I'm not at all worried about the incoming damage. And this fit is also cap stable, so I can just be running the reps the whole time. So I'm pulling my drones now and into the second room.
Warp drive active.
So the first time I did this room, I did a lot of just wandering around the room. If I'd done a video of the first attempt, which, as I say, I didn't complete anyway, if I'd done a video of that one, I basically spent like half an hour wandering around this room trying to work out where the triggers were. And I did at least figure out that it was near these cans that things started to happen, so the second time through, I've had a look at the EVUni wiki and have a better idea. I want to be heading toward the two groups of cans on the upper side of the site here. Meanwhile, I'm trying to kill the small drones again. I don't know if any of them are going to scram me here, but I don't want to find out the hard way, so I'm just killing them as soon as I can. And starting to take out the missile batteries, since those are going to be there all the time. It just takes a bit of damage off of the field if I kill those. The only thing that I'm really interested in this site are the battleships that spawn toward the end, but I still wasn't completely sure as I was running this here whether I could tank the whole site if I spawned everything in, so I am killing some of the battle cruisers just to reduce the incoming damage here. On later ones that I ran, I stopped doing that. You can just really focus on the later waves that spawn. But for this early run through, I'm still sort of just shooting at anything that appears and seeing what happens. Still worried about these small drones. They are webbing me, which is why it's taking a long time to trigger the next wave. I'd be better off just focusing on the small drones and which I think is what I switched to doing, is I continued doing some of these sites once I had got a better idea what I was doing, and also to try and get the escalation, which I did the following day. That'll be the next video. I guess the upside of clearing all of the battle cruisers out before I trigger the next wave is it becomes obvious which ships are in the next wave. It makes it easy to keep track of which things you should be shooting at because you've already shot everything else anyway. And there we go. Finally, the second wave has spawned in, and I can start shooting at those because that's what I need to do to get through to the battleship wave. I believe none of the drones in these waves have any scrams, only the first wave had those. So I'm very safe here at this point. Even if someone comes into local, even if they already have the site scanned down, they still have to warp in to the site and through both acceleration gates before they're in the room with me, and I can just warp off at any time here. So I've spawned the second and third wave at this point, and I'm just slowly burning through the cruisers from these waves until I trigger the battleship wave. I have a mix of ammo in my cargo this time because I came out here without exactly knowing what I needed. It turns out that the Mjolnir ammo is easily the best for the enemies out here, but I brought a mix of ammo. Next time I came out to do this, I actually brought just Mjolnir Rage missiles and some Kaldari Navy just for clearing off the frigate-sized drones. But this time I'm actually a little limited by ammo. I think I ended up switching over to Inferno, not in this site, but in one that I ran. I ran another one later in the day and ended up switching ammo. Really, you're limited when you eat yourself into nullsec like this. You're basically running sites until you run out of ammo. So you're quite limited by cargo capacity. You can see that my cargo is like 2/3 full here, which is basically just all of the ammo and all of the salvage from the sites. And gradually you expend the ammo and fill up with salvage instead, and then once you've exhausted the ammo you go home again. I haven't been keeping careful track of which enemies spawned in that second wave, and I think the trigger for the next for the battleship wave is killing all of the cruisers in that second wave, but I've lost track of which ones I should be shooting at. I think the best thing to do is really to lock up all the cruisers when they spawn in from that wave. That way you can just work through them one by one. I've also burned a little far out here. When I did later runs of this site, I switched over to not using my AB so much, which does put a bit more pressure on your tank. The AB does help a lot when it does reduce the incoming damage quite a bit, but you don't need to run the AB all the time, and it is a little easier to just stay in range of the group that you're fighting if you don't run it continuously. I'm making heavy use of the drones here. It seems very safe to use drones in these sites. The rogue drones, ironically, don't really target your drones very much. So I'm using my drones to clear off the small stuff, since I can only fit light drones anyway, and using my hams to deal with everything larger, of course. I could, however, basically just leave the smaller drones. They don't really do enough damage to be significant, and I'm tanking the site completely fine regardless of the number of enemies on field, and that continues to be the case even once I get to the battleship wave here. and because I'm not keeping track of which targets I'm supposed to be killing to spawn the next wave, I end up basically clearing all of these early waves, which is more than you need to. I could certainly do this faster, and I think I was doing it a bit faster after I had done a few more of these. That is the downside, of course, of doing a challenge where you do different sites every day, that a lot of the time I'm doing things that I have not done before. Another big part of doing these nullsec exploration missions, of course, is surviving in between the fights, getting around nullsec when you're in hostile space and you're not getting the ship blown up. And so I have actually a complete refit in my cargo to a travel fit, which gives me an interdiction nullifier and inertial stabilizers to get my align time down. So I have a decent chance of getting out of any bubble that I land in when I go through a gate. I am using, this is a cloaky setup, so I can cloak and warp, and that gives me a good chance of getting away from camps. Not perfect, but it is a good chance of surviving even in hostile space, which is one of the reasons to bring a Tech 3 with a cloaky setup. At this point I was a little confused at why the battleships hadn't spawned yet. I think I've slowly realised that I've obviously killed stuff in the wrong order, and I'm now burning back to the remaining battle cruisers to finish dealing with those, but also taking out some of these cruise missile batteries, because I'm still, although had partly done one site earlier in the day, I'm still a little worried about the DPS. In practice you don't really need to worry about it. And here we go, finally the battleships are here. The Sentient is the one I'm actually here for, and so I'm immediately going to go and orbit that and burn that down. So the goal is just to kill that battleship. That's actually the completion of the site, so I'm done as soon as I get that down, and then loot it and salvage it to get the most value out of the site. Alright, and the Sentient goes down very quickly, as you can see, to my rage missiles. So now to grab the loot and start salvaging.
The module has run out of charges.
While I'm salvaging, I'm just going to continue shooting at the other battleships here, since they all have a bounty attached to them. It's not a huge payout, but it is, I think it is worth the ammo. I haven't done the numbers, but I'm sure it must be worth the ammo. Alright, and I've salvaged the Sentient wreck, which is the most valuable salvage in here. Actually, I don't have very good salvage skills on this character, so sometimes, some of the later runs of this site, I found I was sitting around for several minutes waiting for the salvager to actually succeed. But this time I got lucky and cleared it quite quickly. Again, since I'm not yet very sure about the value of the site, I am kind of hanging around and killing more battleships here. This is not optimal. It would be better to just go and look for another site at this point. I actually got very lucky with the nullsec expedition that started this series of sites. All I did was filament from my home base, and I landed straight in Rogue Drone space in Peregrine Falls, which was exactly what I needed. There weren't any good Pharaoh wormholes nearby to get me into here, so I just took my chance of a filament and I got lucky. So obviously it was a good sign. Of course, in order to use my travel fit, I have to refit on the fly, so I've dedicated a portion of my limited cargo space to carrying a mobile depot. That's very safe to use when there's nobody in system like here, so that's why I have a number of bookmarks that I made before I went into this site. That was so I could get the drop an MTU down, refit to my combat setup. Because obviously I travelled here in the travel fit, and then I'll go back to one of those saves afterwards to switch back over to the travel fit again.
A module has run out of charges.
But it looks like I'm doing the completionist run of the site here. I am salvaging the other battleship wrecks and burning down the other battleships that have spawned in. I actually trained into the Loki at the end of last year with the intention of running these sites, but I had never actually got around to doing it. I ended up using the Loki first for some of the events in HiSec at the end of last year instead. So this is the first time I've used the Loki fit for what it's actually intended for. I'm just orbiting each battleship that I destroy here and salvaging it while continuing to clean off the last few enemies in the site. And at this point that gets rather slow because some of the enemies are orbiting too far away for me to salvage and shoot them simultaneously. So I'm just sending my drones out to kill stuff while I kill some of the closer stuff and finish salvaging. People that run these sites routinely, I'm sure, find this inexperienced version of running the site a little bit painful to watch, so sorry about that. I am doing a very thorough run through the site, it seems. There's the first tick from running the site, 15 million. Because I'm running in a very quiet part of nullsec that is not, doesn't seem to be actively occupied, there's a good bounty risk modifier in this system. There will be more money that comes in when the ESS pays out as well. So I think in total the site is probably worth around, done in the very thorough way that I'm doing it here where I kill practically everything, I'm probably getting around 30 to 40 million from running the site. Whether that's good for the site or not, I don't really know because I don't run them routinely. Another wave of enemies spawned there when I finished killing the previous group, so I've decided to clean those off too. Actually a little risky to be spawning additional waves. There are some strain drones in there that could have scrams. It looks like only the first wave actually had scrams, fortunately, but yeah, spawning in extra waves that might have scrams is really the last thing that I want to do, given that I'm exploring in hostile territory here. I'm currently hunting around the site for the remaining large wrecks to salvage. I am at least not going to stay here and salvage all the smaller wrecks, but since I'm still here and still shooting stuff, I might as well be salvaging as well, I guess. I don't think any of the wrecks other than the sentient really are likely to have any valuable salvage, however. And I have finally got through to the last battleship wave, but there's no sentient enemies in this wave, so it's really not actually worth spawning. However, having done it, I decide to clear these battleships out as well. They are still worth some bounties. There's the 17 million tick and all the enemies they killed. A lot of enemies because I'm being rather thorough here. Of course, having spawned more battleships, I now have more battleship wrecks to salvage, so I'm doing that as well while I wait for the last battleship to go down here. Is there going to be another battleship wave after this one? I think there might have been.
Our module has run out of charges.
Nope, that is indeed the last battleship done in the site. And I think at this point I just hang around to salvage. And this is where it becomes apparent that I really do not have very good salvaging skills. I put salvaging, I was on salvage 3 I think when I ran this site, so I put salvaging 4 and 5 on my skill queue after running this. Still, doing the site very thoroughly this time through certainly taught me the more efficient way of running the site. I made a mess of my ranges there. It certainly taught me to focus on just getting through to the sentient. Having looked at the loot from this run of the site, I realised that I really just needed to focus on getting to the sentient enemies. And Opportunistically salvaging the other wrecks is okay, but it's not worth hanging around for like this. Alright, final wreck at last. And there we go, that's my first completed Radiance.
Warp drive active.